Hey, welcome to the Gaming Bench. Today I'm going to build an ancient strategy game that was popular all across the Asian and Indian continents. Seemed like each culture had their own version of the game. In China, it was called Pong Hau K'i. In Korea, it was called Ou-moul-ko-no. In Thailand, it was called tong, and in India, it was called Do-guti. And that's what I'm going to call it for this video, Do-guti, because that's the name I knew it by when I first came across the game. Well, that's not entirely true. The very first time I ever saw this game was years ago at a Renaissance festival where the merchant called it Horseshoe. But it's the exact same game. All of these games are the exact same in construction and play. So let's get to it. The board for Do-guti is super simple. It's just 5 points connected by 5 lines. You move your pieces across and try to blockade your opponent so they can no longer move. Now, because the board is so simple, there's a lot of different ways I could build this. I mean, the easiest way would be just to cut a block of wood and paint the points and the lines on it. I could do inlay. That wouldn't be that hard. But I just did inlay for the NIOT board that I built. And honestly, one of the reasons I started this channel was to give me a reason to always be building something and to stretch myself and try new techniques and new ways of building things. So I'm going to do that today. So instead of the glass beads that I usually use as gaming pieces for games like this, I bought this big bag of these big 1-inch glass marbles. So what I'm going to do is have a block and cut divots into it so that the marbles will sit on there. I think that'll make for a fun looking game. So I have this cove bit or bowl cutting bit, so it'll be easy to cut the divots for the 5 points. But since it's such a simple board, I want to jazz it up a little bit. So I had this idea. I bought this piece of turning stock, I don't know, a year or more ago. I need to turn a new handle for my pizza cutter. And I started thinking, what if I did a laminated thing like this? So I did a test with that cove bit, and you see it makes this really cool bullseye pattern in the wood. These are about 1/16 inch thick colored sheets of wood that they've just laminated together. So I don't want to use this because I have plans for that. So I did a test piece. I bought some thin maple and walnut strips, and you can see here that if I laminate the maple and walnut, it makes a really nice bullseye pattern, just like in that other piece of wood. And here's what's happened. Here's what happens if you drill too far through your sample piece. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to laminate a bunch of pieces of this wood. I have maple and walnut. They're both 1/16 of an inch thick, and I'll just do, I don't know, like 5 or 6 plies of that to give me the block that I'll use to cut the board game. The game itself, I'm going to make it out of a block about this big, about 5 by 5 inches. That will make a nice portable size. I am concerned about gluing all these layers together. It's going to be a fair amount of layers, and it's going to be a lot of glue. And if you saw my Seizure video, you know that I just glued 2 relatively thin layers together, and I got a bow in it when the glue dried. And I think it's using this water-based glue. Usually I use Titebond 2 wood glue, and it's great for almost every purpose, but I am concerned that much moisture in the glue might warp these. So I talked to a friend of mine who's a real woodworker, professional woodworker, and asked his opinion, and he suggested a resin-based glue. So I'm going to try this product from DAP. Never used it before. Looking at the ingredients, it's essentially a long cure time crazy glue. So I'll use a minimal amount, spread it out really thin, put the layers under a lot of pressure, and hope for the best. The maple and the walnut veneers I bought came in different sizes, so I'm going to have to cut this down and tile it. I'm going to make this oversized by quite a bit because I want to make sure that I have enough so I can test the depth of when I go to cut in the divots and the connecting lines to make sure that they're where I want them to be. So this is thin enough that I should be able to cut it with just a box cutter instead of trying to take it through my table saw. So it's going to be 5 by 5 square. So I'm going to give myself a full 3 inches of slop. Again, just so I have a lot of room to work with. That is sturdier than I thought it would be. Okay. Ooh, that was bad. So I'm not concerned about matching the grain or anything because this will all be hidden within the piece. Even though I do want to get a nice tight joint here. The maple will go on top. So I'll end up gluing this panel to a thicker piece below it. I want the width of the entire board to be about the same as the sample block I cut out, so about 3/4 of an inch. So I'll get another piece of walnut, I think, and I'll glue it all together. First, I need to glue these together. All right, I've never used this glue before, so I really don't know how this is going to go. I'm just going to try to keep it thin and not get it all over my fingers, and we'll see. All right, well, now I'm just, oh boy. Come on. I'm at 30-minute working time. So now I'm just going to put it between these 2 pieces of wood. This one needs to be wider. These 2 pieces of wood. And the wood glue generally doesn't stick to this wax paper, but I know this epoxy glue will. Hopefully not terribly, because I want to minimize the amount of sanding I have on this because it's so the veneers are so thin. So these are weights I have left over from the home gym that was in the house when we bought it. I got rid of the home gym, kept the weights just for a situation like this. It's been 24 hours, which honestly is probably way longer than the glue really needs to dry, but I don't want to take any chances. So let's see what we got. Okay. That looks great. Looks nice and flat. All right. Next, I'm going to glue it to a block of walnut to get it up to a total thickness of 3/4 of an inch. Really paranoid I'm going to screw up these dimensions in some fashion, so measuring more than twice. Okay. Cut this piece of walnut down to size. And now the question is, I was just going to use the regular wood glue because I know this won't delaminate with wood glue, or should I use this glue again? I mean, I guess I should use this again because it worked the first time. All right, let's do it. I got busy with another project, so this has actually been sitting here for a couple days. So it should be well and truly dry by now. Let's see what we got. All right. That definitely looks flat. All right, next I need to square it off. Now that I have a 5x5 piece of stock that has the laminations I want and it has the base on it, I need to start drilling the holes. And since this is such a simple board, it's going to be important to have these positioned precisely or it's going to look wrong. And precision really isn't my thing. So I made not really a jig, but made a right angle here. And I did a bunch of sample pieces and figured out how to put some blocks in so that I could position my router to do a repeatable plunge cut that would get me the holes that I want. Before I do that, I want to take this offcut and do a couple sample holes to make sure that I have the depth of the hole just where I want it. All right, that, to my mind, looks about perfect. One thing I learned when I was doing test cuts is that you got to cut it fast, because if you let the bit sit on there too much, the maple wants to burn really badly. And then when I tried to sand out the burn, it really left a dull edge, and I want these edges to be kind of crisp. So let's give it a go. So this is about 1 inch thick, and I want it to be about 3/4 of an inch thick. So before I started drilling the holes, I said, I'll just run it through the planer a couple times to take down the thickness. And the first pass, this is what happened. So now I got to figure out how to reduce the thickness on this and take care of this nastiness. I mean, this is the bottom of the piece, so this is all solid walnut. So it's not as tragic as if the laminations were torn off, but it's still no kind of good. I'm sure this is user error on my part. Ugh. All right, fix this. I don't know what's going on with my planer. I opened it up to make sure there was no debris in there. I don't use it enough for the knives to be dull. I put this on a sled and tried to run it through, and it just chewed it up more, so there's definitely something not right. Ultimately, I ended up taking this to my table saw and just running it through a couple times to get this flush, and then I sanded it a little bit. I started at about almost 1 inch, and now it's about 1/2 inch. So let's pretend that part didn't happen. And now I need another spacer because it's too thin for the spacer blocks that I made. So I have these spacer blocks in here, which should allow me to just drill, 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 and have 4 evenly spaced holes on the perimeter. So let's do it. Got a little bit of tear out. That sucks. I didn't get tear out of my test pieces. I imagine it's because these laminates are so thin. They're about 1/16 of an inch. But I don't know. Not bad. Certainly not bad enough that I'm going to go and redo this whole process. For the center hole, I have a different set of spacers that go on top to help me center this thing for the center hole. All right, it's looking pretty good. For the connecting lines, I put in a different bit. I have a V-gouge bit that I'm going to put in there, and I can run it across using the same spacers. All right, pretty nice. All right, now for the cross lines. It took me a little while to figure this out, but if I place this like this, keep that tight, and use another spacer, I can run a line the whole way across. All right, pretty happy with that. I did not expect getting the piece to the right thickness would be the challenging part of the project. This is what I was worried about. And these turned out pretty good. So then a little bit of weirdness, a little bit of tear out that I'm gonna sand. I can't sand too aggressively because this is only 1/16 of an inch. And then I think that's it. My original plan was to put a different game board on the back of this in the same way to be played with marbles, but now I'm afraid that this is too thin and I might break through on this. And I was gonna put a border around it, maybe a walnut that I could chamfer, but honestly, this has been such a disaster with the planer. I'm just gonna call it good and cut my losses and just put some finish on this thing and be done with it. I like the way it looks, and I'm afraid if I try to do anything else to make it look fancier or nicer or whatever, then I really will screw it up beyond recovery. So I will just finish it with this Osmo hard wax oil, which is the finish that I've really fallen in love with. Really like the way it looks, and I'm hoping it'll let this walnut really show through once it's all done. I've been using this for a lot of projects lately. Mostly because I think it leaves a really lovely finish, but also this little can was super expensive and I'm gonna use every last damn drop of it. Done. You know, even though I rage quit the construction part of this, I am happy with the way it turned out. It's not exactly what I thought I was making, but still, it's a nice looking little board. And with a couple big marbles in there, it makes a nice looking little game. Yeah, I'm definitely happy with that. So if you want to learn more about this game, Do-guti, or many of the other names that it's known by, I have another video linked below that goes into the rules, history, and strategy of this ancient game. And if this is the kind of stuff that you'd like to see, please like and subscribe. It would help me out. All right, I'll see you next time on The Gaming Bench.